The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Manx Radio's Mannin Line, on air through till 1. We're open line, so whatever's on your mind today, the floor is yours. The lines are open on 66 13 68. Text 166 177, email studio manxradio.com, or WhatsApp on 166 177. But you'll need to have us in your contact, and you can send us a voice message and a photo. Just one quick note, if you're in Peel and you were looking to go to Cowley's Pharmacy in Athol Place this Sunday, it's closed this coming Sunday to personal circumstances. No pharmacy cover in Peel on Sunday, so you need to ensure you've got all the medication required before this time. There will be suitable alternatives on Sunday. I think Boots is open in Strand Street in Douglas from 11 till 4:30, and Lloyd's Pharmacy is open inside ShopRite in Douglas from 10 through till 2, but Cowley Pharmacy, Athol Place in Peel is closed on Sunday. I just wonder what you thought about yesterday with John Curtis and Andrew Langan Newton, and any follow-up on what they had to say as we head towards our net zero future. It seems that the mist is clearing slightly. We're getting slightly more focused on where we need to go. The one thing that's sure, it's going to cost an absolute fortune. A note in from Simon, who just says, we regularly take our dog for a walk to the secret beach, as it's known, by Douglas Head. And in the evenings, there tends to be the same groups from, I think it's called the Manx Car Meet group scene, who are taking part in some dangerous antisocial behaviour in their cars, including playing with fire next to the Manx Petroleum site. They do take part in dangerous driving manoeuvres, which we witness. Police, council, DOI need to do more to stop the behaviour for the safety of other road users and pedestrians, and the police need to install CCTV, regular patrols, and banning those who gather there. Well, it's a public road. You can't just ban people. But we've had many reports about this, and it doesn't really seem to go anywhere. Is the behaviour there that bad? Obviously, last night it's probably completely unconnected, but somebody went off Marine Drive last night. The fire and rescue services had to retrieve the vehicle, which was down by the waterline. A note also in from Damien, who just says, residents from Douglas Head have been calling for the government and local authorities to carry out an assessment of the Battery Pier and South Quay area due to the increase of, and Damien's word, boy racers who are gathering in their cars in the evenings, causing a disturbance to residents. Police have got registration numbers of individuals who are causing the issues, excessive revving of their car groups of up to 20 people, and they're mostly R-plate drivers. We request reducing the speed limit to 20 miles per hour, put some speed bumps in, CCTV that covers the entirety of the pier, and we also think the government should look at banning car group meets in public areas and public car parks where there's no health and safety assessment in place for a large car group meet. There are also other areas, including Shaw's Brow Car Park, Chester Street, Douglas Head, Battery Pier, also dealing with similar issues, says Damien. Some of the drivers meeting the area, as I say, excessive revving of cars, sometimes 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And obviously, as we're heading to the weekend, although probably the weather will put them off this weekend, we're requesting that the government and police make it illegal for cars to rev at night, which technically falls under the Noise Act. Over the years, none of the departments has done anything to support residents dealing with these issues almost every night. And that's the issue, isn't it? If it's outside your house, it can drive you scatty. Most other people may just shrug their shoulders. I just wonder, is this happening near you at all? Do you get, let's call it boy racers, revving vehicles. Some people modify their exhaust. What do you think should be done about this? Anything else up for grabs, really? We're open line today. John's first with us now. Hi, John.
Oh, first of all, wouldn't you? I was unable to get on yesterday. It was very busy. So, thank you for getting me on today. I'd like to talk about Dr. John Clauser. Now, if you challenge any of these climate alarmists with any facts or figures or whatever, then they always say, "Oh, but thousands of scientists say this," or "scientists say." However, Dr. John Clauser he's the 2010 Wolf Award winner, which is a very prestigious award, and he's also last year's Nobel Physics laureate. Now one wonders, he looks like a fairly oldish guy, so one wonders if now that he's achieved the shall we say, the pinnacle of science, he can actually say what he thinks. And what he has stated is that the climate emergency narrative is a dangerous corruption of science that threatens the world's economy and the well-being of millions of people. He's also observed that misguided climate science has metasized, into massive shock journalistic pseudoscience. We've all seen the agitation on the BBC and whatever. And this pseudoscience, he continues, has become a scapegoat for a wide variety of other related ills. He says, "In my opinion, there is no real climate crisis." Now, he has joined an organization which has come with the World Climate Declaration. This is headed up by another Nobel Prize laureate, Dr. Ian Gelver. Sorry about the pronunciation. And over 1,600 professors, scientists, various professionals. He says that the climate models are not remotely plausible global policy tools. And they are of the same opinion that having looked at all the facts and figures and data from the real world, that whilst there has obviously been some modest climate change, it does not possess any threat to our society.
Okay, we've heard their opinion. What's your opinion, John?
On which?
What you've just said. You've told me Mr. Clauser's opinion,
Yes.
but I mean, what do you think?
Well, as you know, I've always been greatly in favour of facts and figures. And this is what Dr. Clauser is also saying, that the only way to tell what's going on is by looking at the real world to determine what is happening. And yes, it makes a great deal of sense from what I've actually looked at myself. And so when some people say, "Oh, scientists say," no, there's an awful lot of scientists out there who do not agree with the climate alarmist narrative.
But which part? Do you think the Isle of Man is going in the right way? Do you think there's any part of what we're doing that is the right thing to do? Do you think it's right to take fossil fuel boilers out of people's houses? Do you think it's right that we should be looking at onshore wind?
How you heat your home, how you cook your food, and how you drive, or what you drive, or whether you drive at all, should entirely be the individual's decision. For government to hand down diktats based on what Dr. Clauser and many others like him think is a false premise, seems to be entirely wrong. And imposing wind farms on the Manx countryside, destroying woods, destroying heathland, destroying the whole aspect of it is absolutely appalling, and it's not going to achieve anything apart from political virtue signalling, which is actually what it's all about.
It's a fairly widespread phenomenon. I mean, when we had our general election a couple of years ago, virtually every candidate was espousing green policies. In fact, they were at the top of their list. Look at any political party, bar a very few in Western Europe, and they're all signed up to the green agenda. In the Western world, it's really universal, John. So how do you explain that?
Well, it's all imposed from the top, of course. What can we say?
When you say the top, what do you mean from the top?
Well, for instance, Dr. Clauser was supposed to give a talk on the limitations of climate models at the International Monetary Fund. As soon as he came out with these these comments on what he believes is the corruption of science, his talk was abruptly cancelled. So anybody who speaks out, as Dr. Clauser and many others have done so, is immediately cancelled. So if you've only got one narrative, people are going to be very badly misinformed as to what is actually going on. And of course, there is the organisation called Covering Climate Now, whose mission is to is climate crisis propaganda. It's a news cabal, and a lot of well-known institutions have signed up to this: the BBC, the Guardian, obviously, Independent, Channel 4. Reuters even have signed up to this, where it is to promote the propaganda for the climate crisis.
Okay,
so
all right.
People are sadly misinformed. It's very sad indeed.
Okay, all right, John, we're going to leave it there, but you're more than welcome anytime on Mannin Line. We appreciate your opinion. Thanks for being with us today, John. Good to hear from you. Bonzo's on as well. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello. Yes, well, there we have, what was it, 10 or 15 minutes of complete misinformation. What could I say of what was said? Nonsense on stilts? I think is the polite way of putting it. It's just a repetition of the anti-climate change action propaganda, which is pushed out via very many media. He says, "Oh well, I look at facts, I look at the evidence." Do you see the footage of Frankfurt Airport? Was it yesterday or the day before? Frankfurt Airport was flooded. Torrents of water coming through the arrival departure doors, then steaming down into in other parts of Frankfurt, then steaming down waterfalls into the underground system. The hailstorms which have been happening in Italy, in northern Italy, with hailstones the day after tomorrow-sized hailstones, bigger than your fist. The fires in North America and Canada. I mean, now the entire population of Yellowknife in Canada being evacuated as we speak. Because of the encroaching forest fires. On Maui, of course, the devastating wildfires, which have essentially erased a community from the map. And how much more evidence do these people need? I mean, it stacks up to the moon and back. And this also reminds me of, I forget the name of the climate scientist, but he was at the University of East Anglia, and various anti-climate action people sponsored by the fossil fuel industry did various hacks and misinterpretations of his emails, which led to a 3-year fight to actually disprove these falsifications and put climate action back by about 5 years. This utter, like Klaatu in The Day the Earth Stood Still, the old version, not the one with Keanu Reeves, where the government official says, "Oh, I can't really arrange a meeting with all the various people in the United Nations because they won't all sit in the same room with you. I'm sorry that you have to be impatient, Mr. Klaatu." I say, yes, I'm impatient with stupidity. And I think I and very many other people are impatient with the stupidity.
Did you hear yesterday, Bonzo? Did you hear the two contributors?
Yeah, I've looked back on the video. I wasn't able to listen live yesterday. I've looked back on the video, and I'm afraid, yes, I approve of their contributions, but the thing is, there is still this confusion, and whilst we have this information, misinformation, information, misinformation ping-pong game, nothing's going to happen. And I think there needs to be leadership by government, and I think that leadership needs to be within the media. I think one thing that would be very helpful when it comes to renewables policy is if you had on Mannin Line Tim Crookall, chairman of MUA, and his head of energy policy at MUA, who I think is Lizzie Riley. If you had those two on and be able to answer questions from calls, I think that would help a good deal, not only from the question of MUA being able to clarify issues, but also the listenership to clarify some issues with MUA.
So, in terms of, I don't know whether you heard what John Curtis had to say about Kroger yesterday, and I know in the past you've mentioned you were against the Kroger development, but he said as long as they can square off their emissions, that it should be okay.
Well, that's looking at it from one angle, because maybe they might be able to square off emissions in the development. About squaring off emissions in the use of the gas, then it'd be another matter. But the major arguments that Kroger use to justify that they simply don't hold water. And this idea, as one person I think who left a message on yesterday's programme, saying, "Oh, we have to have Kroger, it's our future of 20 years, we need all the money. Well, you're not going to get any money from it. That's how it's going to work. Whereas you can get money from seabed leasing to people like Alsted to build a wind farm in that particular section of the Irish, territorial waters.
Okay, all right.
And that money is assured.
Okay,
and
right.
It's nothing that the UK can take away.
We've got to dash off now. Bonzo, have a good weekend.
And you.
All right, let's go to Wilf's on now. Hi, Wilf.
Hi, it's nothing to do with what you've been talking about. I have my own views on that anyway. But I'm on again about South Beach in Ramsey.
Right.
It's the dirtiest beach on the Isle of Man. The actual corner. When the tide is in, we've got very little beach. It's just a triangle. And I've seen 200 people jammed on that triangle. And now they've got to sit on sea thistles and rubbish that gets pushed up into that corner. And every year, without fail, it used to be scraped clean. I've done it several times myself for the commissioners years ago. Now I haven't to dig it on the road to do it. Now they're talking about, we've got to say what DEFA says because birds nest on it. Birds never nested on it. It's for people to nest on, not birds. And the thing is, nothing nests on there unless the rubbish is allowed to build up. And actually, there's a not the lifeboat slip, but further along slightly, there's a small slip. Tried to explain to them, but it doesn't sort of register. There's a small slip which they use for the small yachts to run up and down on. And there's 3 big planks lying alongside the wall. And the sliders in that wall. And come the winter, those planks are put back to actually stop the beach coming onto the promenade. Otherwise, it would cover the road full of gravel and sand and seaweed and what have you. Now, every beach in the Isle of Man is now being kept clean. They've actually got a new machine, I believe, down Port Erin, which they clean the beach with. Peel Beach is immaculate. Douglas Beach, I think, is pretty clean. And we're left the way we are. Our commissioners won't do anything without the word from DEFRA. And DEFRA says, the birds nest on it. The birds do not nest on it till it's built up sufficiently with rubbish. The last birds that nested on there, then they fenced that piece off, and there's hardly any beach left when the tide's in for the people to go on. The last birds there, I think they were oyster catchers. They ended up covered in cement because there was something wrong with the cement silo at the back, and all the cement blew onto the beach and covered them. And then I think the gulls got them in the end then. So I'm doing my best for the people of Ramsey for the beach, but I'm just banging my head on the wall. It's ridiculous. That beach was perfectly clean. The tide used to come right into the corner. Now it can't get into the corner.
I thought, didn't I hear, I think, wasn't Mr. Kelly on yesterday talking about the commissioners? Were they going to ask DEFRA to clean the beach?
But DEFRA won't do it. It was always, the Ramsey pays rent for that beach. And they are responsible to keep it clean for the people to go on, to sit on. And they will not do it. I'm the only one that says do it. Well, Mr. Singer was on at the last, and he says it stinks, but they still won't do it.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks. Have a good weekend. Thanks for calling.
Right.
Cheers now. And if you're in Ramsey and you use that beach, tell me then, does it stink? Does it look an absolute mess? Here's Howard now. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. Just a train of thought. It's something to mull over. Yesterday, when the 2 chaps were on talking about wind turbines and various things, but it crossed my mind last night. You know when you switch a toaster on, you get the glow of the wires inside while it's going to do your wee bit of bread. Uh-huh. Well, we put that down to what they call resistance. So in every cable where you're passing a current through it, you get some form of resistance. And that resistance creates heat. Small maybe, but it creates heat. And the more power you put through it, the bigger the cable you have to have. So this leads me back then to the wind turbines. The cables carrying the voltage, the current, from there to a platform, they'll come from the wind turbines, this is the offshore ones, under the sea, and then a cable will run from the collection point to a land base under the sea. Now, are the people running these turbines and the companies, are they using the water, the sea as we refer it to keep these cables cool? Because if you do that, you're essentially building an area where it is like an electric blanket. And often, and I've only just put this together, and I'm probably totally wrong on it, often hear people on the television saying the temperature of the sea has risen by 0.5 degree or 1 degree, and we now have Mediterranean fish moving up into the English Channel and the south of England. And if you work out, there must be tens of thousands of miles of undersea cable, all acting as a little heating element, constantly 24/7, 365 days a year. And the continuous use of the wind turbines, generating heat as it travels through the cables and then dissipating into the water, must heat the water very gently, very slowly, but continuously.
Crikey, Howard. I've never thought about that before.
It's like wrapping the earth in an electric blanket. And that way, it could be a question to be asked, are the cables that are transferring the electricity being generated by wind farms into a source of heat, and then the heat has been dissipated into the water? Plus, I've not heard one word yet of onshore wind farms. They're talking about the various parts of the island. But again, you're going to have to transfer that electricity to a central point. And yesterday, one of your guests said about they're going to use the power station in Portrose as a central focal distribution point. So that means, you'd have to use the large gantries, same as you see all over the UK, to carry heavy cables to carry a strong current. You can't, if my memory serves me right, in the 1970s, a substation was built out the back of the garage out there at Foxdale, Bedridge's, and from that point onwards, and I think, somebody will tell me different if I'm wrong, there was a 33 kV, that's 33 kilovolt cable, went all the way down the Ballamorda into Castletown to carry the current. But when you get that sort of current going through, you've got to have exceptionally strong cables, or oil-cooled cables, or suspended cables where the heat can dissipate into the air. Now, are the offshore wind farms creating the problems that the CO2 is supposed to be creating?
Okay. All right, Howard, great to hear from you. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Bye now.
Okay, actually, as Howard mentioned that, I got a note in from Kenny who just said apparently the expansion of offshore renewable energy infrastructure and the needs for what's called transcontinental shelf power transmission require the use of submarine high-voltage cables. These cables have a maximum operating surface temperature of up to 70 Celsius and are typically buried 1 to 2 meters beneath the seabed. How about that? I never thought of that, did you?
This summer, there's no limits to what you can do with Manx Telecom. Get unlimited calls, texts and data with unlimited speeds on island. And if you're spreading your wings, no worries. You can get 600 minutes, 600 texts and 6 gig roaming in the UK and EU as well. Check out manxtelecom.com/summer for details, terms and conditions, or call in store. Manx Telecom, the smart choice this summer.
From our castles to our cottages, our museums, and the Great Laxey Wheel, you'll find hidden treasures around every corner when you visit a Manx National Heritage Site. Fill your summer making treasured memories with Manx National Heritage. Sites now open every day. By visiting, you help protect our treasured island for generations to come. Plan your visit today at manxnationalheritage.im.
Summer is here. So check out the King William's College Summer Activity Camps, taking place at the Buchan School, Castletown. You'll find a fantastic range of age-appropriate activities for children island-wide, aged 8 and over. There's cookery, arts and crafts, multi-sports, music and more running through to the 1st of September at just £35 per day or £150 for a 5-day booking. For more information, visit the King William's College Facebook page or see online at kwc.im.
What was government dragging its feet about with the significant delay in releasing documents on the previous administration's handling of COVID? Was Dr. Ranson's presentation toned down or just edited to focus on the core message? Was an hour long enough for Council of Ministers to set aside for consideration of such a weighty issue on how to deal with an unprecedented pandemic? That's all in perspective this Sunday at 12 noon on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Is Isle of Man TV presenter Paul Moulton right in feeling victimised by government, or should he be apologising for besmirching government officers?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
24 minutes before 1, Friday lunchtime on the Isle of Man. Filthy weather, but it's summertime. Is anybody able to find out if this is true, says Chris? Douglas Council wardens can now issue parking tickets in council car parks in residential areas like Pulrose. Is that true? Well, we'll try and find out for you. Remember, Manxman went out for one day yesterday. She's got 2 days off. Hopefully by Sunday, Manxman will be out again. She's under a 26-knot wind limit. Temporary 26-knot wind limit for entries to Heysham Port as part of the gradual build-up of knowledge and experience of operating the new vessel. Fingers crossed. There are only 2 nuclear power stations next door. Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Just before the subject, somebody else mentioned earlier about unusual amounts of rain, which I think we've seen in Asia, and also it was mentioned at Frankfurt Airport. January last year, the large subsea volcano called Hunga Haipai, which is a bit of a mouthful, it's the largest volcanic eruption since 1815, when Mount Tambora erupted, and there's a book based on that called The Year Without a Summer. And the calculation from NASA is that there was so much seawater ejected up into the atmosphere, it's increased the amount of water in the stratosphere by 10%, which is a vast amount of water. Now, the bit we live in is the troposphere, and they don't mix that easily. So, in some ways, everything that goes up has to come down, and 19 months later, we're now seeing large amounts of rain. So is it any surprise, when you've got gravity and a huge amount of extra water in the upper atmosphere, when it comes down, it's going to come down quite heavy, isn't it?
And this is the point. I mean, Bonzo was talking about, fake news and stuff being on social media. And social media has put everything that we now do in all parts of our life on steroids, because everything is magnified now. And what we're trying to do is find our way through this and just see how we're going to live our life. Because politics is going in one direction, public policy is going in one direction. And I'm just interested in, I have no opinion. My opinion doesn't count for anything. But what I'm interested in is where we go and how we get there. And more to the point, who's going to pay, Julian?
That's right. And they're focusing very much on stories like Maui and sort of not mentioning that the original succulents that used to grow there were cleared in the 1700s for sugar cane production, which they used to burn off. That has been left fallow since the last farm was finished in 2016. And there's 2 kinds of grass, Guinea and fountain grass, is from Africa that grow there now, along with eucalyptus, which, as we know, is full of oils and burns like bilio. So when you sort of don't take it back to its original pre-1700s, shall we say, rubbery kind of plants, and you end up with things that will burn like mad, it's kind of human mismanagement of the land more so than anything else.
But that wasn't why you called, was it?
No, sorry, I digress. The wind turbines up at Erie Staine, if we forget about that amazing view that you get when you're going up the Slock, around where the hill climb is, and you look down, you've got the valley looking out towards Guernsey and Castletown. One of the things that I think will be the most pressing for people, especially in the Southern Plain, is air pressure waves from these turbines, which are referred to in acoustics as barometric oscillations. And basically, you're going to get a whoomp and a whoosh every second or two. And they are so large, these sound waves, that what they basically do is when they strike the side of your house, they're going to slightly deflect the roof and the wall, and the inside pressure inside the house will slightly increase on every one.
Are you serious about this, Julian? Is that true?
This is absolutely true. These are very, very long wave, something between half a hertz and 16 hertz that are coming off these blades. Because if you imagine, one of these blades, which they're talking about dragging up there, is about 6.5 bus lengths long. So it's going to be interesting logistically, either getting it through Ballasalla or, whichever way you're going to try and get these things up there. But if you imagine, they're a bit like a large subwoofer thing. They're swinging around. They sweep about 2.7 acres or 116,000 square feet. And what you also end up with is anyone that's ever driven up the Slock, you'll notice that quite often you'll be going up through the clouds and then you'll break through and it's quite sunny and nice. And that's called a boundary layer. So when the blade sweeps down, it's going to be like hitting a duvet and you end up with a thwack. So the blade is changing speed, and that energy is then released as long waves that were going to come down that valley, a bit like an amphitheatre. Because when you're, like where the S-bends are on the Slock, you look down towards that valley. They're all going. It's almost like a guide wave to guide it down, and you're going to be hitting Port St Mary and Ballabeg and Colby and Castletown, Ballasalla. And they deflect as well. There's such long waves that they will bounce around corners and stuff. So, in theory, you might even hear it all the way up through Santon and maybe beyond. I don't, But
has this happened anywhere else? Has this been noted anywhere else?
Well, the thing is, what they tend to say is, you hear the whoosh, and when you get away from the whoosh, you can't hear anything because the atmosphere tends to calm down the normal sounds that you can hear. But these ultra-low frequencies, when you talk, you've got very low tones, and your brain, in the back of your brain, is trying to interpret this. It's called speech. I think it's speech modulation index. So when you start hearing these vibrations, your brain is automatically searching to hear for what, somebody says, oh my God, there's a fire, or you're in a restaurant and you overhear somebody swear. Those frequencies are what's in the back of your brain. So this is why a lot of people are finding it very hard to sleep, because these sound waves are causing a drum effect in everybody's houses, and you feel it as much as you can't hear it particularly. But say in Hawaii, for example, on the mainland, they put some wind turbines up quite close to a major city, and everyone's up in arms about that, and they're trying to get them taken down because nobody can sleep within 4 to 5 miles of the things.
All right, well, fascinating, Julian. Thanks for that.
Thanks very much, Andy. Cheers.
Good to hear from you. I want to go to Mick's on now. Hi, Mick.
Hello. I was wondering if you can hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear, Mick. You're on the air.
Okay, good afternoon. I was just going to thank John for calling and enlightening us about what's going on with the climate scientists and the to and fro of there's scientists saying that we are in a climate crisis and there's scientists saying that we aren't. What he said is basically the doctor that he's speaking of has basically put his career on the line by coming out and saying that, because his career is basically done, is what he said. He has nothing to worry about. Whereas the scientists that are agreeing with this climate crisis and what the World Economic Forum and the WHO and the UN and everybody else is saying, they're saying that because they've got their reputations at stake, and they've got need to be sort of rely on grants and donations and everything finance to keep themselves going, and they won't get that if they don't toe the line.
And we've heard this mentioned many times that scientists are in effect towing the line. They're towing the net zero line, they're towing the green line, otherwise their source of income just gets turned off, the tap gets turned off. Do you think that's true?
I absolutely do think that's true, and I believe that what John was mentioning, the top this is all coming from the top, and you asked what the top was. The top is, I know this is going to sound like conspiracy theory, but the global elite, the Bilderberg Group and all that, the people who are going to benefit immensely from all the rest of us having to fork out money to become net zero or to adhere to this climate crisis scare. They're going to benefit from it like they did from other worldwide panics they instilled in everybody. I believe that wholeheartedly, and they've got a lot to gain. I mean, for instance, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation buying up farmland everywhere and then not using it. Why would they be doing that? It doesn't make any sense other than they want to promote, lab-grown meat. And that's to save the planet because there's so much bovine gas being produced. But then again, the animals we produce for meat and dairy and whatnot doesn't account for near as much carbon dioxide as the dying of plants and trees and leaves. And we can't do anything about them either. So it's only a minuscule amount of carbon dioxide that is being emitted. Besides the fact that everybody knows that they were taught in school, we need carbon dioxide to live. The Earth needs it. Plants need it, and they expel oxygen, which we need. So, I mean, if we're going to reduce our carbon footprint by zero, we're going to be in trouble. Very big trouble.
All right.
I also have one other thing. I just was wondering if anybody knew, especially maybe Wilf. I went swimming in Cornaa 2 days ago, but the tide was out and it was dead calm. And when I was out there was what looked like an oily sheen over the surface, the entire surface, and it wasn't like iridescent. It wasn't like you'd see a diesel spill on the ground. It was completely clear. But if you can imagine looking at your thumbprint, the waves of a thumbprint, it was like that. It was like that on the surface. And you could stir it, with your finger. It was very odd. I've never seen that.
Did it smell?
No, it didn't smell at all. It was nothing out of the ordinary except for, visually it looked very, very odd. And I've swam in Ramsey before, and I've kayaked in Ramsey, and I've never seen it there, ever. It's just wondering if it was something near, between Ramsey and Laxey. If anybody knew.
I'll see if anybody knows. Okay, that's great. Thanks for calling today.
Sure.
All right, good to hear from you. And if you can shed some light on that oil, wherever that was, then we'd love to hear from you. Also, a note in from Steve, who just says, Steph. It was Steph, not Steve, who just said, lovely to hear that lady yesterday plugging wood burners as well. Wood burners smell a lot better than coal. She was talking about the fact that why are we still burning coal on the Isle of Man. And also thanks to the person who sent me a link into the gov.uk, the UK government site, that says that it is illegal to sell traditional house coal in England for use in homes. Coal suppliers and retailers in England can continue to sell anthracite coal, semi-anthracite and low volatile steam coal, but coal merchants and retailers can be fined by local authority enforcement officers if unauthorised coal is sold to domestic household customers. How long do you think it is before we get that here?
Caterers, get ready for racing with Robinsons. Bulk buy and save. With our full range of food and drink supplies and everyday catering products, order for collection at Call Road or free delivery. Call 690000 or order online at robinsons.im.
How would you like to be remembered? Why not create a lasting memory by leaving a legacy donation to the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust? This would help our dedicated team to continue the restoration to save our historic landmark. Whether purchasing a personalised plaque, making a legacy donation, or requesting funeral donations in lieu of flowers, you will be remembered. To find out more, email qprt.net or visit us on Facebook. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey and Sons.
I've just called the Guernsey Bank, Skipton International, about our savings.
And did you get a helpful robot?
No. At Skipton International, you speak to a very helpful, real person.
That's refreshing these days.
Well, that's why I chose them, for the perfect combination of personal customer service and some of the best savings rates. All by calling 01481 730 730 or visit skiptoninternational.com.
Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the Guernsey Financial Services Commission and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. Details at dcs.gg. Terms and conditions apply.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
And this weekend, you could win a 24-month Smart Unlimited tariff worth over £1,000 from Manx Telecom.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning, when we'll be announcing the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
9 minutes before 1 on this blowy, wet Friday lunchtime. Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
I have this picture of Julie Andrews running down through Erie Staines singing "The Hills Are Alive" to the sound of wind turbines.
Well, it's funny enough, I got a note in from, and let me see, this is from Steve, who just says, this is scaremongering. Come on now, I've just returned from a European trip. Thousands of wind turbines on hills everywhere, cheaper electricity, lower prices than us, and no vibrating houses, apparently, says Steve.
I think Julian asked a question yesterday, which was, I think, tiptoed around and avoided. And he asked the question of any country at the moment that's actually showing a profit from these, that's actually showing positivity. And I think both your comedy hour act yesterday came on, and they tiptoed around that one, didn't they? Not
well, the trouble is with wind turbines, the amount of subsidy that went into them, nobody quite knows what the profit and loss is or what the balance sheet looks like. We all know, though, that the price of electricity has gone up 38%. So I'm all for cheap electricity, no matter how we get it.
And I think this seems to have gathered legs because, everything needs a catalyst, and the first catalyst for this was the COVID drama. The second catalyst is the Ukraine and the Russian problem with the power. So everything needs legs to get itself started, and I think that's what they're working on now. When these two came on today, John Curtis, who obviously, again, makes it very clear now that he is a businessman, and he made quite a bit of money from the fossil fuel industry, and now he's switching allegiance. So
and the thing is with John Curtis, that's one of the reasons that, yesterday we had a politician and we had a businessman, and Mr. Curtis makes it perfectly clear. He knows how the industry works, and he's in business. And, at the back of all this, let us not forget, and as Mick said before then, there are lots of people who are going to make billions out of a change in the way we live, if you like, a revolution in the way that we power our lives and we transport ourselves around, what we eat, what we wear, how we live, where we go on holiday. There's money to be made.
And as John pointed out yesterday, the banks are very keen to get on board with this. And let's not forget who sponsored both sides of World War II. It was the banking industry. So they're not all to say that they're all behind this. It's not all sweetness and light. But the main point of this would be what percentage of the atmosphere is CO2 at the moment, Andy?
About the same as it always was, I think.
Well, listening to a Senate Q&A the other day, and a lot of people were questioned on this, and it's 0.4%, and that's up from 0.3% over so many decades. Now, plant life starts dying at 0.02%. And this is 0.04%. So these are the figures, the actual true figures. And like your callers before have said, certain people's microphones have been switched down to number 1 and everyone else's has been switched up to number 10. We had this during COVID. Everyone else is a denier and a conspiracy theorist, and their microphones are turned off to get the other side of the agenda going. And that's the fact, isn't it? Here, 0.04%. It's very, very small when plant life starts dying at 0.2%.
Well, without carbon dioxide, without sufficient carbon dioxide, we will be up the creek without a paddle, because no carbon dioxide, no plant life, no nothing, we're all gone. Good night, Vienna.
Yeah, exactly. And Another point, just on a sideline of that, I listened to Mike Proffitt talking to Paul Moulton the other day. I'm not a keen lover of Mike Proffitt, but he did make a good valid point when it was said about all the drama about we've got to make our mind up, the power station has nearly finished its life. And like he said, and it's quite true, if you've got a second-hand car and the guarantee's up, you don't scrap it, you repair it. And there's repairable parts in the power station, so the power station's got a lot more life in it. It's just the fact that its guarantees are running out on certain things. So, they put all this here scare tactics, and we've got to do this, and we've got to do that, and we've got to jump through hoops. And, when you get these here actual CO2 figures, what's it all about except someone making money?
Okay, I've got to go. June, thanks for being with us. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, thanks for that. A note in from Big John in Laxey says, Wilf Young deserves a medal. He's completely right. Ramsey commissioners objected to a shop owner painting the lamppost outside their shop, and they won't clean the beach. They constantly object for people who want to make a difference. Got a note in from Prue, and she said, what's happening to stopping children smoking vapes? I have to tell you, October is the important date. The next phase of it's called the Vaping Products Bill 2023, and it goes through LegCo in October 23 to provide an opportunity for scrutiny and potential refinement. This is the Vaping Products Bill aimed at stricter regulations on the sale and promotion of vaping products. It went through Keys. October, it's going to LegCo, so I hope that helps. And that's it. Thanks to Howie and Chris today on the phones. And thanks to you for your attention. It's been great to be with you this week. Have a good weekend.
W.I.